I made the decision to leave my parents' home in my early 20s. My mother, who was constantly monitoring the news and warning me not to trust strangers, became a little concerned when I told them this. She believed that I might be stabbed by a murderer as I was strolling along the street or something similar. However, after 2 weeks of looking, I finally located the house I was seeking for on the internet. That it would be my new home made me happy. I was packing up the rest of my belongings and traveling to my new house because I was relocating in a few days. I was transferring all of my other belongings into the house after putting all of my big things, like my bed and drawers, there last week. I was thrilled to be living alone when I arrived at the house and got out of the truck. Even so, I was unable to meet the individual who sold me the house. They had a lot going on. Without assistance, I managed to carry all of my belongings inside the house. But there was a letter on the door when I returned inside to check what was inside. I hadn't seen the house in a long time. Reaching for the note, I began to read its contents. I hope your first home is enjoyable, dear new homeowner. I'm happy I could provide it to you, but know that things aren't always as they seem. This house has a troubled history. The note read, "Please be warned." Confused, I glanced at the note and then around. Was this real or was it a J? Oak? I didn't know, but I thought I needed to organize my belongings around my new house, so I stuffed the message into my pocket. In any case, everything was in its proper place a few hours later. It was getting a little late, I realized. For supper, I ordered some pizza. I had no desire to prepare any food. After that, I was alone myself watching TV while eating my pizza on the couch. I have to admit that being by myself felt really lonely. Being by myself and without my parents to chat to was quite unsettling. Despite having a phone, I didn't enjoy using it frequently because it made me feel uncomfortable. I went to bed after realizing it was nighttime when I peeked outside. Since I was alone in a completely different place, it was actually a little challenging to get any sleep, but I succeeded. I was awakened by a sudden bang. It was still dark outside when I sprang up and looked around the room. It was 2 in the morning when I checked my phone. I wondered what had happened and scratched my head. I heard the noise again and got up, wondering what it was. I went to my bedroom and unlocked the door. As it should have been, the hallway was dark. I stepped into the hallway and looked around. I was about to head back to my room after seeing nothing noteworthy when I heard that stupid noise once more. I clenched my fists and snarled under my breath because I knew that these punks were playing a practical joke on me. I then rushed to the front door and partially opened it. There were no punks running down the street, which was what I was hoping to witness. Little jerks, I whispered to myself. I turned to return to my room, slamming the door behind me. When I saw that the hallway lights were on, I came to a halt. When I first came down the corridor, I thought they were off. I went back to my room, found the light switch, shut out the lights in the hallway, and then got back into bed before dozing off. It was light outside when I opened my eyes, so I hurried to the bathroom to clean my hair and teeth. I yelled, "Go away," in crimson letters that might have been blood on the mirror as soon as I switched on the lights. I wrote this on here as a practical joke after being startled to discover that the noise I had heard the previous evening was coming from someone inside my house. I peeked out of the restroom. Was there someone waiting in my house with a weapon, ready to seize all my things and shoot me in the leg? Maybe I simply needed some tea or coffee to wake myself up, so I rushed into my kitchen and backed away from the mirror so I wouldn't have to worry about what I was looking at. After making myself a cup of coffee, I went to watch some morning television in the living room. The TV was on and a news report was on when I got there. All night long, had it been on? I was even more alarmed when I discovered the remote control on the couch, where I had left it the night before. I switched the TV to something else, settled down on the couch, and grinned while watching a football game that had at last reached the enjoyable portion. As I sat there, I considered my intentions for the day. I intended to do some housework and see what was in the basement. The homeowner informed me a week prior to my move that they had never entered the house's basement. If you've ever seen a horror film, you'll understand why. However, I was the one who liked horror, and because it was my home, I wanted to see it. When I was finished, I picked up my phone and put on some cheap shoes. This was in case the basement's lights failed to function, in the unlikely event if there were no lights in that basement. So I went down the basement and hoped the door wasn't closed when I arrived. The doorknob creaked open so loudly that it sounded like it was hurting my ears as I grabbed it. I covered my nose as the musty stench hit me. I wanted to look even though the scent down there was like rotten wood and mold. The stairs heading down were visible when I switched on the flashlight on my phone. I was anxious that they may shatter under my weight. However, I plucked up the strength to descend the stairs, felt them give way under my weight. When I reached the bottom of the stairs, I took a glance around. I spotted a light switch in this dimly lit room, grabbed it, and flipped it on, to my amazement, turning on the lights. Confused, I moved over to the crates I saw in the corner after looking around. After that, I saw that one of them was open. I opened the box by grabbing the flap. I picked up the photo album that was within. When I opened it, I saw it was a family photo. A man and his spouse were there. Both of them were grinning, and the woman was dressed in a white outfit. "Go away," from behind me came a shouting voice. The book flew out of my hands and onto the floor as I leaped. There was nobody there behind me when I turned around. I picked up the music and put it back in the book after getting up and taking another look around in the hopes that what I had heard was a dream. "Get out!" a louder yell came from the same voice. Then I bolted up the steps. I hurried up the stairs, slamming the door behind me, oblivious to the sweat streaming down my cheeks. Breathing hard, I collapsed on the hallway floor. That statement on the mirror was written by whom? I was immobile and didn't want to move. Was it my imagination or was I going crazy? I was freaking out. At last, I got up. I was at a loss for what to do. I knew what to do next, but I didn't want to be back in the basement. As quickly as I could, I sprinted into the living room, took out my phone, and started typing on my keyboard. It was simple to find out who had lived in his home before me. I located the photo of the man and woman I had seen in the album, but it included no details about either of them or the house. I moaned quietly to myself. I had the want to hurl my phone and shatter it into several little fragments. I stopped staring at the front door and made the decision to merely look around and fix a few more items around the house. I've never been much of an outdoor person, but for some reason I felt the need to go outside and explore my new area. Perhaps I'd run into one of my neighbors and be able to introduce myself and have a nice conversation. And when I noticed a young woman sprinting down the street, I had my opportunity. I chose to say hello to her after noticing that she was approaching me and that she was wearing headphones. She remained silent when I stopped in front of her. She walked straight past me after I said hi, ignoring me. I didn't want to be impolite, but I wanted to pursue her and find out what was wrong with her. I muttered as I made my way back into the home. This is why I don't talk to people. I won't tell you what I did the remainder of the day because nothing else happened. Mostly it was laziness and wandering around my house while reflecting on the incident that occurred in the basement. The sun had already fallen and it was time for bed before I realized it. After that, I slept off in my bed and woke up to find myself in a pitch black room. I rubbed my eyes in confusion before realizing that I was in my pajamas and standing up rather than lying down. What the devil was going on, and where was I? "Hello," I yelled while staring about in confusion. I turned back and froze as I heard laughter behind me. Then I noticed it. A woman in a white outfit was standing there. I had trouble seeing her face because of her thick black hair, but I could see that she was holding a knife. "Who are you?" I questioned her. "Alexander, stay away from my house." My heart fell. How was my name known to her? She must have sensed my fear because she grinned at me as she looked up. I put my hand over my mouth. Her eyes were all dark, her fangs appeared sharp, and the knife appeared much bigger. "Hold on, please don't," I let out a terrified cry. Then she stabbed me in the chest with one quick motion. She worked so quickly that the knife sliced deep into my chest. I glanced at the woman, who was grinning at me, before I collapsed to the ground, feeling blood gushing from my body. After hearing her laugh, I fainted. I jolted to my feet, felt my chest, and turned to see that I was in my room. Even if the room was still somewhat dim, It was all only a nightmare. Then I heard the darkness laughing once more. Confused, I glanced around before noticing the woman standing in front of my bed, grinning at me while wielding the knife. I backed up in bed, my heart pounding frantically. With a giggle, she asked me, "Are you scared, little boy?" Then she hurled the knife at me out of the blue. I leaped from the bed as it struck the wall directly next to me. After the woman finished laughing, I watched her walk out of view. I hurried over, switched on my flashlight, and saw nothing but the knife in the wall. I went over and yanked it out of the wall. What on earth just took place? I made the decision to install cameras the following morning in order to apprehend the insane woman who was in my home. Putting cameras around the house where I knew I could find them the next day took me about an hour. I was then putting away the dishes from the previous evening when I heard more laughter. I muttered a snarl and spun around, half expecting to see the woman in the white dress, but I saw no one or anything. Once more, I muttered a growl. I was suddenly struck in the back of the head by something. There was shattered glass on the floor when I turned around. It had been hurled, and the cup broke as it hit the floor. When I spotted a man in a suit standing on a wall with his arms crossed, I gasped and began to sweep the glass up and discard it. "Who are you in the hell? My name is Mr. Smith, and you are in my home," I inquired. He yelled, "Get out at me." "Leave my house, please," I yelled. In an instant, the man was no longer there. I was feeling nauseous. After that, I dashed into the bathroom, and as I raised my head, I literally puked in the toilet. I let out a groan. I felt like I was about to faint from weakness and nausea. After that, I got up and got myself together. I thought that I was about to depart. I intended to notify the individual who gave me the house over the phone that I was moving. If there were ghosts in the home, I couldn't stay here.